Nvidia is really a generational story for now because, I mean, how many $3 trillion companies actually have doubled, so clearly Nvidia is important, but it's important because it's really one of the most important ways to get exposure to AI. And I think the AI story is, early innings, as many people talk about. It's transformational in terms of productivity, and there's a lot of use cases developing. So as much as it might feel like a one stock market, as you know, there's a lot of stocks up more than 20% year to date, and I actually think breadth is likely to increase. So for investors, there's a lot of opportunities in the second half.
Tom Lee highlights Nvidia as a generational success story, achieving unprecedented growth by doubling its valuation to over $3 trillion. Nvidia is central to the AI revolution, benefiting from its role as a leading supplier of critical technologies driving productivity and innovation in the space. Despite competition from AMD and others, Nvidia's first-mover advantage and strategic investments in AI startups position it as a dominant force. Lee notes its remarkable market performance and its pivotal role in shaping the future of AI, maintaining investor confidence. Looking ahead, Nvidia's growth trajectory remains strong, though analysts expect more moderate gains. Its leadership in AI and strategic foresight ensure it remains a key player, capitalizing on the immense demand for AI technologies in an evolving market.
Nvidia, the stock's been the standard bearer for the AI boom over the last few years, and honestly, I feel like I'm underselling it because the performance truly has been unprecedented when you think about the value created by this name over the last 2 years, just in real dollars, going from, a really big company, several $100 billion in market cap, to, some $3 trillion. It's never been done before in that kind of speed.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, the momentum that it has seems to be continuing, at least in the first trading day of 2025. And even with the choppy action that we're seeing in the broader market, investors are returning to the beloved Nvidia, the tried and true there. So the share price has been holding up even with the back and forth that we've seen between the bulls and bears. And to your point about, let's just talk last year for Nvidia. I mean, the stock jumping more than 170%. One of the leaders in terms of gains for the year in the top three. Revenue in their latest quarter was more than $35 billion. So it just continues to outperform. And then you had this jockeying where it became the world's most valuable company. It took the position from Apple, and it's just been kind of jockeying back and forth between them on who have the pole position. But that was as recent as June. It reclaimed it. Well, it first happened in June, then it reclaimed it again later in 2024. So the momentum continues for it. And I mean, look, I think what's happening here is it still has first mover advantage when it comes to the types of chips that it produces, right? Those chips that these major companies need to rely on. And there was all this talk last year about AMD and would it catch up? It still didn't catch up yet. Obviously, there are challengers, and AMD wants to catch up, and of course, Intel wants to, but it's got other problems that it needs to deal with. AMD maybe could be close, but then when you look at alternatives, if you need chips that are less intense compared to, say, Blackwell or its predecessor Hopper, some companies are starting to look at the Broadcoms of the world, and we saw that reflected in its share price. But Nvidia, obviously, it has that massive first mover advantage, and it's still expected to be strong this year, Alex.
Yeah, it seems that it's sort of like a situation where this could even balloon to something even bigger, where it's like, we know the technology race, like things get obsolete so quickly, they're gonna have to replace and expand and expand and expand. But at the same time, these companies that are spending all this money, if at some point there's not like dollars and cents that come back to them, do they abandon these products or these projects? And I know they've said they're not going to do that, and so we'll take them at their word. But at some point, you'd think they'd want to see real, tangible dollars and cents in return, given how much is being spent on this. But Nvidia is still in the right place at the right time to benefit. Now, this really puts in perspective, I think, what I was trying to say, and it's not really just the last 2 years. This was an X post from John Ehrlichman, just to give him, the credit for this. I don't know if you saw this, but it says value of $1,000 invested a decade ago, and it lists several names. Of course, Nvidia's at the top. 272,000 and some change. Stock went over 270 times in 10 years. And we're not talking about some up and coming micro cap company. We're talking about one of the bigger companies on the planet, it's really, truly, it's unprecedented.
It's true, and if you think about even the origins of the company and the idea behind it, producing these GPUs really to fuel the power that was needed for gaming, but now it's become what is necessary for the race to dominate AI. And of course, the U.S. wanting to hold the position as the dominant place there, and Nvidia being able to have the front position there. So they're, expected to continue to fuel that. Will they keep the crown this year? That does remain to be seen. I think, it's a strong chance that they will continue to be the leader in that. But in terms of, to your point about other changes that we've seen, the strength that we've seen in Nvidia, or the growth that we've seen, even knocking Intel out of the Dow. So that says something, especially when you think about such an old, that was once a heavyweight.
At some point here, we'll look ahead and we'll talk a little bit more about, what 2025 may bring. But I want to bring another, kind of just tidbit here. My career really kicked off in 2015. So 2015, 2016 saw a little bit of, volatility in the markets. But I remember coming in 2016 and thinking, oh, this Nvidia stock's, pretty expensive relative to where it's been. And it did see a sell-off, and it sold off like 25% in the first quarter. You know what the split adjusted price of that is now? It's sold off from about 80 cents to 60 cents. That's incredible. It's just how far this stock has come, and just, such a short amount of time. Crypto, video games, and now the biggest of them all, this AI boom. It's just been so good to investors, and continues to be a really good start to the year, too, up 1% with the market making new lows as we speak. I know there was this investment note as well. I'm sure there's countless investment notes here. Any thoughts from that?
Yeah, I know there was a report in the Financial Times showing that in terms of Nvidia investing in AI companies in 2024, it invested $1 billion across the space, across 50 startups and several corporate deals last year, and that's an increase over the prior year where they spent $872 million across less than 40 startups and deals, et cetera. So it shows that their war chest, that they have enough to make investments out, from the growth that they're getting and from the demand that they have.
Yeah, no, they're a player now. I mean, they're one of the companies that has the cash to do something like this. And I mean, we've watched companies like Alphabet through their other bets category, companies like Apple, companies like Microsoft. They don't necessarily have to come up with the ideas anymore. They can just buy the startups that are making these, different breakthroughs, buy them early on enough that they reap the benefits in the end. And it's sort of one of those the rich get richer stories. But Nvidia broke into this pack of companies. It is truly a player at the table, and I think that particular stat that you just brought, I think, highlights that.
Yeah, but even if you think about the origin story, if you go to the top of the leadership of Nvidia with Jensen Huang, and when you think about his origin story and started the company at a Denny's, it seems that he would still have, kind of close to his heart wanting to invest in the next growth story, the next Nvidia. So you can see why there would be investment in startups and increasing that investment. What is going to be that next origin story?
No, I think that's a great point. I think you see this similar with like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. You can go down the list, any of these big time CEOs. Incremental increases in their wealth or decreases in their wealth really doesn't influence their quality of life at this point. I don't know if it going from 10 billion to 15 billion really changes anything, but they do want to make impacts on the world and whatever they think will happen, whether that's EVs and autonomous driving for an Elon, or the stuff that Nvidia is working on in AI, or the space race that we're seeing from some of these different billionaires. They all want to make their mark, and that's sort of, I think, where they derive their drive at this point. It's not about just how much dollars and cents are in the bank anymore when you got as much as some of them do. Any final thoughts on Nvidia here before we look at a trade?
I will say one thing that I've noticed in terms of analyst views on Nvidia for this year, while it's still expected to be an industry watcher, while it's still expected to be a leader, the share price is still expected to grow this year, but not the same rate that we saw last year. So
Yeah.
that stands out to me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's been dangerous for fund managers to be underweight this particular name. But I do think that there's some uneasiness about the performance and just how lofty some of these valuations have gotten in all these names. But again, if the next guy is invested in it and he's got these returns for his clients, that's risk too. And I think that's kind of the downside of some of these different kind of investment philosophies is you might be doing something prudent, but if the other guy's right, you might lose the business anyways. So let's talk trading this name. One thing that you can do also, individual traders who are looking at things like this, you can use risk-defined strategies to protect from drawdowns the same way. And so say you think Nvidia can make a run at those highs again up near 150, 152, maybe you'll look at something like a call vertical, slightly out of the money or in the money depending on how optimistic you are, and you can structure it in a way where you risk a little bit less than your reward potential. Give it a little bit of time, and if you do get another run up towards those highs, perhaps you can participate without taking the real big time risk or capital exposure as being a shareholder. And so that's what I looked at here, January 31st, just the end of the month, the 145, 150 call vertical. This again is just in the name of FOMO, looking for a move back to those highs. And if that happens, for a $1.50 debit or $150 in risk, you have a chance to make upwards of $350. Now, you need some help from the market. The break even's 146.50. That's 10% or so, $10, I should say, higher than where we're at now. Something like 8%. So you're going to need some help from the market just to break even. But if you get that move, you can participate. You have a chance to make just over 2.5 times just under 2.5 times the risk on this particular trade. So risk 150, chance to make 350, break even 146.5.
Nvidia has experienced unprecedented growth, becoming a major player in the AI revolution with its pioneering GPUs. The company's stock has soared from hundreds of billions to over $3 trillion in market value, largely driven by its dominance in AI technology. Despite competition from AMD and Intel, Nvidia's first-mover advantage and strategic investments in AI startups position it well for continued success. However, analysts predict slower growth in 2025, raising concerns about its ability to sustain such high valuations in the long term. Can Nvidia maintain its AI leadership in the coming years? Is Nvidia's current valuation sustainable given the expected slower growth?